Many thanks indeed for staying with us here on Sokoni, where we take a critical analysis of what is happening in the economy right now, which we've talked before here on the National Oil Corporation of Kenya being bailed out by a government, and this is the time that when they should be really coming to cushion Kenya. Now there is a good relief that we can see is coming from NOCK, that we're going to get export of import of oil from Saudi Arabia into the country. What do you have to say about that? Because I know also you were in the oil sector as well.
I was, yes. I think it would be a good idea for a government to government deal on import of petroleum, but I think the way the media is putting it, that is going to be a big relief. Maybe we should not overemphasize it, in a sense that oil is a globally traded commodity with a spot price. I don't think there would be any government that would wake up and say, okay, I'm going to give you 30% off, for no reason, because we love Kenyans, I don't think that kind of a huge relief in terms of the price of oil that we are going to get at would arise from the NOCK deal. So maybe some concession of sorts, which will give us some small margins, would be expected. But I think, frankly, the government, by trying to give that story, is trying to divert attention from the real issue. The real issue is that the huge level of taxes and levies on petroleum, this is where the challenge is. The government is being urged to reduce those levies and reduce those taxes so that petroleum can be a bit cheaper. And you do that by also reducing your own public expenditure on, to reduce your budget deficit and so forth. I think that is where the issue is. So trying to tell Kenyans, oh, we are going to get a deal from Saudi Arabia. I will see, the proof of the pudding, it will be in the eating. We went through this when a few years ago, I think, Patrick, remember, NOCK was given the same opportunity, and before the ship could land in Mombasa, there were all kinds of allegations that oil, disappeared on the high seas. And sometimes we have had those government-to-government deals, Nigeria and other countries, and nobody knows what came out of it during the era of Kibaki also. So let me not be pessimistic, but to imagine that a government institution would deliver on a very competitively priced product into the market in a very efficient way would be something that in this country, given our circumstances, would be hard to sell. Let me leave it there.
Thank you. And maybe unbeknownst to you, Bill Okero, the gentleman sitting next to you, Engineer Patrick Obathas, also is the chair of...
I know.
Oh, you do know. Right. Maybe you'll be in a better place to tell us where this oil disappeared. No, but that's not an issue in the high seas. Yeah, but critically, do you fly and agree with what Bill Okero is saying?
Bill is absolutely right. The cost of crude or any product is a global issue. Buying a liter, buying 80,000 tons of premium, you go to the market, those people are also trying to make money. So we are not going to get all of a sudden a 30% reduction in the cost of fuel. The national oil company is obviously looking around to secure deals that will give us a slight advantage in terms of getting margins, and those margins can then be reduced a little bit, the margins that the company would make, and that will slightly reduce the cost of fuel. But primarily, the cost is looking at all those levies and taxes that are sitting in there. That is really what will make the big difference. If you talk about the margin that an oil company is making, it is 7 to 8 shillings, maximum 10. So an oil company can only influence that margin by not more than 3 or 4 shillings if they choose to do so. National Oil included, because we are here in the business to actually survive as a company. So yes, the National Oil Company is looking for deals that will give us a good margin, so we can pass part of that margin back, but do not expect a seismic shift in the cost of oil until the primary cost globally goes down. So let's just brace ourselves for hard times. The other thing is that the cost of the dollar in Kenya is changing, and that also is a big influencer of the cost of oil in this country. In fact, it is one of the biggest ones. If you're now looking at the exchange rate, I think it's at about 120 shillings to the 120 shillings to the dollar, right? From 100 shillings at the beginning of last year. That is a huge jump, and that is hitting the pockets of everybody in terms of the price of fuel. So let's be realistic. Yes, the national oil is doing its best, but you're not going to see a 30% drop in the price of fuel. No way.
Are we likely to see any, not even 30%, but what percentage maybe? You can just give an name. What people are paying right now is, even a 2 shillings will really help. Even just 2 shillings.
The costs are going to be looked at primarily in terms of the taxes and levies, and that is really where we can begin to drop the cost. Yeah. If you remove the subsidy in this country, we are going to pay the true cost of oil, which is 200 shillings a litre, right? So already that subsidy is giving us a great relief. But when it is removed, the only control that the oil companies have, including NOCK, is not more than 8 shillings in that litre. That is all that they have control of. So all you can get is maybe 2-3 shillings maximum in terms of the reduction of price. That is within the control of an oil company. The balance is all within the pricing formula that exists in the country.
In agreement with what the government is trying to do right now, we had from the energy CS saying that we want to scrap the subsidy. Are you in agreement?
The subsidy is not sustainable. That's the reality. The money has got to come from somewhere. And until the cost of government shrinks drastically, then you can talk about subsidies, right? And even the cost, the levies that are coming through that you're paying for, right? The inefficiencies within the whole, the refund processes and so forth and so on, means that the working capital requirements from the oil companies goes up, and that is a cost that is passed on to the onto the consumer. Some of the issues that were creating high prices of oil, like demurrage at the port and everything else, that has been reduced by the commissioning of the new berths, so that you're not having the delay on ships. But when you look at the overall logistics chain, there are still inefficiencies that will actually keep the price up. So I think there's a lot that needs to be discussed, not just statements that we will do this and the cost will go down. There's a lot of interdependencies within the logistics chain that needs to be looked at in totality, so that we can lower the price of fuel in the country.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I just release Patrick and Gituro Naina? Yeah. Before he goes.
I've asked Patrick this question. Even last time we were here, Patrick, you keep talking about the petrol companies, but we never seem to ever address the issue of taxes on the fuel, and that is where the devil is in that detail. How much of what is the cost of crude oil before it lands here, and how much of that do we increase the price of oil by? What's the percentage that government keeps? Because that's what these high prices actually is a self-defeating exercise, because high prices means high cost of production. High cost of production means less people are employed. It's a self-defeating exercise. It's about time the government lowered these taxes, returned the cost of fuel to where it should be, and encourage production. Right now, everybody is not.
In light of that, also, Patrick, you also as a chair, what is the capacity of NOCK in terms of strategic reserves? Because if we had reserves for ourselves right now, that will actually cushion the country as it is. Do you have the requisite capacity to have enough strategic crude oil reserve?
As I said earlier on, the strategic reserve question in the world these days, you don't hold strategic reserves as a company. You create a trading hub. And we're in discussions, in fact, with various organizations, asking them to set up oil trading hubs in Kenya. And then they will store the product for you. And then you just look over their shoulder and make sure that it's available for you. It is expensive to hold stocks as a nation waiting for something to go wrong. Let somebody else hold the stocks for you. Let them trade it. Let them earn money. And on that basis, your cost to hold the strategic reserves goes right down. Currently, if you said Kenya is going to put strategic reserves, the amount of money we have to spend as a country in terms of putting up the infrastructure and then filling up that infrastructure, we are going to have another scandal in this country, and people are going to say, why are you doing it? So we have to be innovative in how we are doing things, and that is exactly what we are doing as a company in terms of trying to innovate as to how we can do it more cost effectively for the country. And now to talk to James Mureo's issue, on average, your levies and taxes come to about 50% of the cost of a litre. That is roughly what it is. And it's got to, if you remove that, yes. But also remember that those things are being invested one way or another. And when we have transparency and the impact of the investment of those taxes, I think people will begin to understand the balance between levying taxes and levies and taxes which are being used to create productivity in another part of the economy. That transparency, I think, is something that a good government will put out and say, we are charging you these levies and taxes, but this amount has been spent on X, and that amount that we've spent there is having this impact on the economy and growing it in a particular manner. So I think this is the big debate, Debal, in terms of the whole equation of oil, levies, taxes, and the impact of those on the economy. I think today we may not be able to conclude it. Thank you.
In try and sort it out, don't worry. Okay. But let me just cross over to Bill Okero as well. With this particular issue of the manifesto, what is your big expectation today? Or like Gituro, not much, and is not ready yet?
No, I think I expect Kenya Kwanza to expound on the issue of the bottom-up.
To expound on the issue of the bottom-up.
Yes, I mean, they have been telling us that they're going to change the way things are done in terms of the economy. And so we have not seen anything substantive, really, to date on exactly how they intend to do those things. So what we expect is the details from their manifesto of how they expect to change the way things are done, particularly in terms of the bottom-up. And when they say we are going to give 100 billion to farmers and mamambogas and things, how they intend to do that and how that would reverse the fortunes of how they would create the employment for the youth. And so, it's easy to stand in a rally to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But in the manifesto, you need to give clearly a matrix of how you expect the timelines and everything. And we want to see how that would be impacted, because every action you take has an impact in terms of the revenues that are required to implement. If you say, I'm going to spend this amount of money, where are you going to source it from? Are you going to reduce the taxes, as Maria has said, or what are you going to do? If you reduce the taxes, what are you going to do with the debt payment? So for me, really, the most fundamental thing is, unless someone commits to reducing the public expenditure, there's no way they can address the issue of debt, and there's no way they can address the issue of more resources going out to all these sectors that they're talking about. Because the only way you can create more resources is by reducing some of the expenditures in government. And you cannot do anything much more in terms of revenue. The economy is not performing.
Thank you. And I just want to bring to your attention, because I know you don't have a copy of the Business Daily, even as we're winding up. The Business Daily is holding this particular splash today. The Treasury is shunning a law that sets to control goods prices. Treasury shuns law set to control goods prices. That is we have on the front page of the Business Daily today. And they're saying restricting prices is in the old times and against, if my director may just pick up this, restricting prices is in the old times and goes against spirit of competitive economy, says Treasury PS, that is Muya there. You want to comment on this before, as we're winding up as well, and get your headline thoughts, all of you?
Well, they are already controlling prices, I'll tell you. Of course, for in a liberalized economy, you don't need to set prices. You want to encourage the investors to be competitive in their whatever. But I think we have seen in petroleum the prices are controlled by the government. In the forex market today, the price is controlled by the government. That's why we have problems with forex. And the government is setting limits on what you can sell the dollar in the banks. I think what we are saying is that there are certain essential commodities where the government needs to give a guideline, at least on the price. critical foods, and it happens in many countries, all the way from Egypt to many of the countries in Africa, where the population is largely vulnerable, especially on staple products like maize. You need to find a way, and these prices are set when you take into consideration, some sort of a subsidy by government or some sort of support by government. Otherwise, you cannot just wake up and agree that says we are limiting. You cannot sell a packet of maize at more than 200 shillings. I mean, there's a cost of production, and if you are not going to address the factors, that going to production, you cannot then expect to find those packets on the shelves. There will be the millers will not find it competitive to produce it. So I think it's the government is the way avoiding this thing for one reason. This government is broke. There's no money. Every penny that you collect, you have to pay almost 60-70% of it in debt repayment. So what you're left with is what you're going to use for consumption, for running government, recurring expenditure. So what the government is saying is we have no penny to spare. So they're running away from all these things, because when you introduce price, then ultimately you have to complement in some areas and provide some sort of subsidy.
Thank you.
This is what the government is avoiding.
Thank you. All right, your headline thoughts, James Brown.
Thank you very much. And I like what Biro is saying about liberalizing prices. I think we have seen the cost of EPRA controlling prices that has been upward all along. But for me, I think just going by what we expected today, there are three things that I want to quickly put on the table. One is operationalizing these manifestos, all of them. There must be a clear matrix of how they are going to achieve this. The second thing is there must be a way of them managing the government appetite spending on certain unnecessary areas. Really, that is what is going to save this country a lot of money. If only these candidates have been listening to Sokoni continuously since they started the campaigning, they probably would have shaped their manifestos correctly. We speak a lot of things here in this program that should actually inform these candidates, and they can feel we are talking on behalf of a lot of people in this country that are paying through this process. So for them, really, the challenge I have with all the presidential candidates is the taste of the pudding is in eating it. We want to eat their manifestos and, so to speak, give us what they have promised. The rallies have been vibrant. They have made all these promises. Are they going to deliver to their promises? That is what we are watching. And I warn the presidential candidates and those candidates who are running for any other office that Wananchi have reached the edge of the cliff. If they play around with Wananchi, then there's going to be a lot of problems.
Thank you.
Really, that's my parting
shot. Thank you. Thank you. Your parting shots, Professor.
I mean, for me, as well as what my brother and Bill has said, is really the operationalization of the manifestos. Where is this money going to come from? That's one. Number two, how do you make sure this money goes to where it is intended to go? And this is why I advocate, and I've said this several times, the establishment of a small business administration like we have in the US, where any of this money that is given to these individuals or this group of people it goes to a small business administration where there is coaching, there is education, there is they write business plans, there are issues to work with banks and all those things that have to do with running a business. Otherwise, if we segment small groups of individuals and throw money at them, we have seen what has happened in all the funds that we have. We have the youth fund, the women fund, all these other funds have happened over the last 10 or 15 years or so, but we have not really seen the impact. And therefore, if we are to rationalize all these promises we're making to everybody and have a small business administration, probably run from the office of the president, that directs this money to the intended use, then we start to see what the manifestos are all about, and they start to bear fruits directly to the individuals and to the community.
Right, thank you. Bill Okero, your headline thoughts, please.
Yeah. I am a bit optimistic. I think the political parties are cognizant of the challenges that this country faces today. And they know that, coming in from August 9th, it's going to be tough to rule this country. You know, the cost of living has shot up through the roof. Availability of basic services, basic commodities like petroleum, food is all going to be a challenge. The world is in a crisis in terms of food you've just mentioned. So the challenges are so enormous for them that I don't think it's going to be an easy ride. And even the guys who are in now are just waiting for this 39 days to hand over. and so I think for anyone to expect that it's going to be an easy ride for them from August 9th is going to be a tall order. I'm telling you, the government is defaulting on loans. Thank you. Already on some of the basics, some loans, and these guys have to really find money to balance their books. Thank you. Coming.
Thank you. Bilokero, businessman and politician, also the former chair of the Finance Committee in the Senate and the Senator of Mandela. Thank you for coming through. Also, we want to thank you, Professor Dominic Mwenja. Thank you for coming through this morning as well. We really do appreciate, who is the chair of the CBK Pension Fund. We want to thank you as well, James Merrill, who is the chair of Micro and Small Enterprise Authority, that is MSEA. Thank you for your contribution as well. In absentia, I want to thank also Patrick Obath. Engineer Patrick Obath is the chair of KEPSA Foundation and also the chair of the Kenya School of Government. That is Professor Geturo Owana, in a very cogent discussion here on matters economy. And it's always a treat, guys, having you most of the Thursdays here on Sokoni. Thank you for your valid company. Don't go away. There's a riveting also discussion that is going on right now on Spice FM. That is with Justice Isaac Alolangola and the entire team in the city.